So in this video, we are going to be doing a learning activity, LA09. You want to make sure that you have downloaded the LA09 files, right? There's 3 HTML files. And then notice that I'm using a folder called resources. Up until now, we've been using a folder called images, but we're going to be putting other things in here besides images. So I have named it resources. And I have a style sheet in there. So if you open that up, there's a style sheet there. And you'll notice that the link to the style sheet has that resources in the path, so that you know that you have to go inside the resources folder to get to that style sheet. So that's in there and it's all connected. So if you open up your HTML files, there's 1, 2, 3 HTML files in the editor, and then you can open them in the browser as well. And we'll be looking at them how they are in the browser. How learning techniques looks very similar to one we've done in a previous activity. And managing procrastination is still a page under construction. And the one that we're going to be working on mostly in this series of activities is handling distractions. And we're going to be doing this over the next several activities. So you want to be sure and get up to date and keep things working just the way you expect so that you can build on it. If you get behind, let me know so I can help you get caught up, because we're going to build on each of these as we go. So the first thing that we're going to do is add semantic tags. So HTML5 adds semantic tags, and that means they're structural tags that have specific meaning. We use them when they mean something. So I'm going to start in distractions.html, and I want you to follow along, and you make these changes in your files as well, and then you'll submit those files at the end. So the first tag that we're going to use is what's called the header tag. And this identifies as a section of the web page as a header. And what we're going to do here is just simply surround that heading 1 that says handling distractions with a header tag. Our next section is our navigation list. And there's a semantic tag for that. It's called the nav. So it's NAV. And then you want to put that at the beginning of the UL, and then the closing nav tag after the closing UL tag. So there's our navigation. Now, this first section is going to be a section. So we're going to add that. Now, a section is just used to identify a group of things that go together. This particular section only has 1 paragraph. But we have this on some of our other pages that have multiple ones. Now this next area is incomplete. Notice that I have lots of asterisks, and that's where you're going to be filling things in. But this again is a section. And notice that this section includes an image and a heading 2 and paragraph and a heading 4, a couple paragraphs and heading 4. So you want to be sure and add that section. And then there's this next area is going to be what we call an aside. And an aside is what you use to put information that is related to the page, but not exactly what the page is about. So it's called an aside, and it often does go in the aside section. And the top of this one goes before the distraction defined, and it goes all the way down to just below, or yeah, just above the created by CS2350 class. And so that's the aside. Now the aside has several sections. So we're going to add sections inside aside, and each of these sections has a heading and a tags and an image, so a graphic link. All right, so each of those is a section. Now you can have sections inside of asides, or you can have asides inside sections. It works either way. But we're going to have a section here, and then it closes right here. And then we open a new section, right there. So just before the head, each heading 3, notice that these sections contain exactly the same thing. The opening section goes just before the heading 3. The closing section tag goes under the width. Right? And then down here is my final closing section tag. So add all of those. Oops, this closing section needs to be inside the aside. All these sections are inside. So nesting correctly is important. When you start a tag, it needs to be all the way inside. So both the opening and the closing needs to be in that aside. So make sure you get them in there in the right order. And the last one is the footer. And so this is usually just closing information. It might have contact information. It might have copyright information. And this generally goes at the very bottom of the web page. And so this is what our footer is. It simply is going to define that this page is going to be created by the CS2350 class. And I'll explain that here in just a minute. I'm going to save this and come back and refresh. And notice that we don't see any difference in here. So these don't add content, right? But just identify and group things together. And so now we have added semantic meaning to all of these. So now what we're going to do is add content. And each of you are going to add your own little piece of content. You can follow along and watch what I do, but you will actually be defining your own content for all of these. So in this section that has image and a heading 2 and a couple paragraphs heading 4, you're going to be filling in content that you have to come up with on your own. So I want you to come up with an image and resize that image so it's 172 pixels wide. Now, based on the proportion, it could be a different height, and I'm okay with that, but we want it to be exactly 172 wide. So I have an image like that called foodprep.jpg. You'll actually see it in your homework 9 in your LA9 files. And we need to add a description. So this is an open fridge full of organized containers of food. So that's my description. And the height on mine is 172 as well. So it turns out that this is a square image, but yours doesn't have to be square, but you need to make sure that it's 172 wide. And what you're going to do, create in this section, is to talk about a distraction. Some distraction that keeps you from your work, or has you stop your work, or makes it so you can't concentrate or focus as well on your work. And the one that I chose for mine is food prep. So inside the span, you just want to leave distraction. That's going to stay there, and that word will be on the same on all of them. But after the span, put in a title of what your distraction is named. And then in the first paragraph, I want you to describe the distraction. And do this at least 3 sentences, but you can do more if you want, but to describe it. So I've already written a description of how I love to eat healthy food and often, and how that can sometimes interfere with my work, because I think I need to stop while I'm working and prep food. So there's my 3 or more sentences that describe the distraction. And then in the next paragraph, 3 or more sentences about how you can effectively manage this distraction. So figure out a way to effectively manage that description and then put it in there. And we're going to actually be sharing all these. So I'm going to be gathering them as you submit these learning activities. I'm going to send a combined one that has one section for every person that submits this assignment. And we're going to build a page that contains all these different distractions and ways to effectively manage them. So be sure and write this up in a way that you are okay with everybody else in the course seeing this page. So this will become a public page. So be aware of that as you're doing it, that your work will become public on that section. So now if I save that, then I go back and refresh my page. Oops, I've got the wrong page open. I'm typing in one and looking at another. This is a common problem. You want to make sure if you have copies that make sure that you have the right one open that matches. All right, so there's my section. It starts with that image. It has distraction, food prep, the 2 paragraphs, and my name. All right, so make sure, go ahead and pause the video and figure out the content for your distraction and fill in this section with that. After that, we're going to be working on the aside, and you're also going to write a section that again will be public. We'll put it all together for the aside. And here I want just a link to some web resource about distractions. So here I've added distraction defined. Notice that you'll need a heading 3 and a graphic link. So here the title is distraction defined. I've picked an image and it links to another page, right? It links to that definition. So I've done 3 of them. This is a New Yorker article that this one links to. And this one is the Wikipedia page on distraction. It talks about being distracted in the car, the classroom, the workplace, and other things. So I've added those 3, but we're going to have a whole list of these internet resources about this distraction and the discussion about distraction. So I've left you a template. So go ahead and leave the sections that I've already filled out. And now in this section, wherever there's 3 asterisks is where you're going to fill something in, right? You're going to put the title of your aside section. You're going to put the URL for the link. You're going to put the image file. Be sure and put it in the resources folder. Going to add a description for that image and the height. Again, width, we want them all to be exactly the same width, so size your image so it's 320 wide, and then whatever height fits that particular image. Notice how these are different heights, but they're all exactly the same width. So go ahead and pause the video and complete this section. Find a resource about distraction, some sort of discussion about distraction, an image, and a URL. Okay, so now that we've added all the semantic tags to distractions.html, I'm going to remove this section so that my page is complete, and then as I get yours in, I'll go ahead and copy paste them into this, and there's my aside. So we want to catch up these other 2 HTML, so learning HTML, we want to add the semantic tags here, so we're going to do the header right here at the top. Again, it's just around that first heading 1. Notice that this one says something different, but it's that first heading inside the body. And then we want to add the nav around the navigation list. So opening tag before the UL, closing tag after. Now this first section on learning.html actually contains 2 paragraphs. So go ahead and put the opening section before that first paragraph, and then get 2 paragraphs before you get the second section. Now, for the different sections in this, let me show you how to discover these. Notice that there is a blue heading. These are H2s, and you see there is the article, the technique. Now notice the heading 3s are not blue. So make each section that begins with a heading 2 a section. Right? So the article, the techniques, the authors, and the results. So there'll be 4 sections. So go ahead and do all of those. So the article, get that in a section. The techniques, get that in a section. Then it's long, right? And go clear down to the authors and make that a section, and then the results. And be sure, and the results end after the table. So you go ahead and close that last section just before the end of the body. All right, so we've added all the semantic tags to learning.html. We want to do the same with procrastination, even though this is a page still in construction. We want that first one to be our header section. So we'll put a header tags around the heading 1. And then we have the nav section where we have that navigation list. And then this one has that first section again like the others. Then this one just has one paragraph in that section. And then just this heading 2 that identifies this page is under construction. And you can put this in its own section as well. All right, now we've got semantic tags in all of those. Going back to distractions, sometimes we want to do style the same. So if we go back to handling distractions, we're going to be setting style on these sections. There's going to be a lot of these sections. There's going to be one for each of you. And to replicate that, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. So I'm going to copy my section, not my aside section, but this one right here. So my section that starts with the image and ends with my name. And I'm just going to copy it 4 times so we can see this. Oh, did I get 4? Let's see. I'll go back over here and refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when I get yours, they'll all be different, right? There'll be different distractions, different images, and different descriptions. So this is what it's going to look like. And I want to set style to these that I want to be similar. So sometimes when you want to style a group of elements, then you just need to contain them for styling purposes. And a really common way to tag to use for this is simply a div. Now, a div is not a semantic tag. It doesn't have any specific meaning. It is just a container that we can use for, in this case, we're going to use it to set some style. So I want this section with all 4 of these sections, right? So all 4 of those sections, right now they're all mine, but soon they will be mine plus all of yours. And I want to be able to access this. Now I'm not going to think this is the only div that's going to be here, so I'm going to give it a class so I can access it. And I'm just going to call this my main content. And now I can go into the style and do some style this main content. So I'm going to set the style on my main content. And there's several things that I want to do. Now the first thing I'm going to do is a temporary thing. I want to know where that is, where main content is, and how it fits. So I'm simply going to put a background color on this, and I'm just going to do red. And I simply am doing this for development purposes. So this helps me get things put together so I can see where they are. So notice that there's no separation between the sections. So we don't see any gap at all. We see a little bit of gap to the left and right, and that would be the padding that's on the actual body. So there's some things I want to do. I want to, on the span, I want to set that word distraction. Notice that here in the heading 2, that first word distraction is in a span. And I did that on purpose because I want to style that a little bit different than the rest of the heading 2. So in main content, right, so I'm going to capture this. So in main content, any span inside main content, I want it to have the color, I want it to be this orange up here. Okay, so notice that we're going to be using colors from the color scheme up above. So I want that to be orange. So if I do that and I do, oops, that's that's not what I wanted to do. If I go back over here and I refresh, then, okay, it's really hard to see that orange, but you see how that changed with that red there. Let's go ahead and I'll comment this out for right now so we can see it. We'll need it in just a minute, maybe next even. Okay, refresh. And there you can see that that span part has that orange. And only inside that main contact div. So I can control how I do that. The other thing I want to do is on the heading 4s where the names are, right? Each of you will have your name inside a heading 4. Oh, look what I copied this. I didn't get that closing section. I want those to all have an open and closing section. Let me go back and fix that. Okay, so now I've got each of those sections with an opening and closing section tag, and there are 4 of them. Again, we don't have anything different going on, but now it's coded correctly. All right, so now I want to float the image to the, oh, no, I was working on these heading 4s. I want them to be a different color. So go ahead and add this style rule in there, and I want you to be doing this along with me, right? So go ahead and be adding these rules, these style rules. So main content heading 4. And now I can see what I'm doing now is I'm setting style on this main content without impacting any of the heading 4s that might be on this page or any other page. Especially when we're sharing, when we're doing multiple pages with a single style sheet, we want to be really careful that we don't change other things that we don't intend to. So I want this to be the light blue. So I'm going to copy that light blue down and refresh. Okay, so now we have the orange, the regular blue, and the light blue. And now I'm going to float the image. So main content, oops, let me recapture that. So any images in the main content, I'm going to float right. Okay, so now I refresh, and there we go. So we floated it right. Okay, now I'm going to expose this background color again and see how it's looking. And there, things are looking good. Now I want to go ahead, so here it floats, that image is floating right there. And we want to look and see what happens as we, resize this. So see how tight that text is right there. So I want to loosen that up a little bit. I want to give a little bit of space. So let's go ahead and add some padding right there. And also notice how I don't have any padding or margin on the edge of that, and that's exactly how I want that image right in the corner. So that's good. So I really only need this padding left on that image, and padding, let's go ahead and put some below too, so we don't ever get, so we always maintain some space here. So we don't have anything in there, see it, so it gets pretty tight. So let's go ahead in our image and add padding. We need padding left and padding right. So we can do this with a padding left. We want it to be 6 pixels. And padding right, no, padding bottom to be 6 pixels. And that'll give us just a little bit of space so that they don't ever get on top of each other. And let's see, oh, there. And so that just gives us a little bit of space. And so those letters are never right up against it. Okay. All right, so that's looking good on that. So now that we've got that set the way we want, I'm going to go ahead and take out this background color red. By the way, I use this a lot when I'm developing. I put a background red on an element so I can see exactly where it is and how things are lining up. The next thing we're going to do is add style to the, oops, that's not quite the comment tag. Add style to the aside. section. So, now I only have one aside. If I had more, then I might have to name him if I wanted him a little bit different, but right now this is the only one I'm going to be working with. So I'm simply going to access the aside, and I'm going to give it a background color, not the red, but one that I'm going to keep. So I want the background color to be this green. I'm going to use the light green, so capture that up there and bring it down for the background color. And the other thing that I want to do, let's go ahead and get rid of that red by refreshing. I have to save my style sheet. Refresh. Okay, get rid of the red. And now we've got green around our aside. And the other thing I want to do is go ahead and center it. So I'm going to use, this can be a simple text align to center what I need to here. So I'm just going to do text align center. Okay, and you do the same. So there's the style, and refresh, and there it is in the center. All right, so then this is what it will look like when you're done. And then you just go ahead and wrap it up and submit that .html file. Well, you'll have to submit that several things, right? Because we need your picture and anyway, follow the instructions on what to submit. And that's LA09.